An original podcast from podlatino.com.
There's something we do almost without thinking. We look at someone and calculate, in seconds, how much their help could be worth. We base it on size, on status, on the resources they appear to have. If someone seems small, if they have no visible power or influence, we tend to dismiss them before they can say a single word. It's such a natural habit that we rarely stop to question it. And yet, there's an ancient story that has spent centuries proving just how wrong we can be. A lion was sleeping in the shade of a great tree deep in the jungle. It was the kind of deep, heavy sleep that only comes when you fear nothing and no one. His body rested with the complete ease of someone who knows he is the strongest creature around. And it was in that moment, precisely when the king of the jungle had let his guard down, that a tiny mouse stumbled across his paw. The mouse hadn't done it on purpose. He wasn't brave or reckless. He simply didn't see what was in front of him until it was too late. And when he felt something shift beneath his feet, he looked up and found the lion's eyes staring back at him, already awake, already annoyed, already holding him between two enormous claws. The lion looked at him with the mix of irritation and contempt you feel when something completely insignificant wakes you from a good nap. There was no real anger, just the mild impatience of someone who could end this in an instant and was deciding whether to bother. The mouse, for his part, was trembling. Not because he was a coward, but because he understood the situation perfectly. He was caught. He was small. And the one holding him had no reason to be kind. So he spoke. With whatever voice he could gather, he asked the lion to let him go. He said he wasn't worth the trouble, that he was so small he wouldn't even make a decent bite, and that if the lion freed him, he would repay the favor someday. The lion burst out laughing, a huge, full laugh that rose from his chest and filled the air around them. What could a mouse possibly do for him? What kind of help could a creature that ridiculous offer someone like him? The idea struck him as so absurd, it almost felt endearing. And it was that amusement, or maybe that softness, that made him open his paw and let the mouse go. The mouse ran. He didn't look back. He vanished into the grass and roots with the speed that only comes from fear mixed with relief. And the lion went back to sleep without giving it another thought. It had been a moment of no importance, a brief interruption in his afternoon. Nothing worth remembering. But the story doesn't end there. Days later, the lion was walking through his territory when he stepped into something he shouldn't have. A net, set by hunters between the trees, snapped shut around him before he could react. And the most powerful animal in the jungle found himself trapped, tangled, unable to move. He roared. He roared with everything he had, which was a great deal, but roaring doesn't cut ropes. He struggled until he wore himself out. And then, still and exhausted, he had to accept something he had never needed to accept before. He was alone, and he could not get out on his own. The roar had traveled far, and among all those who might have heard it, there was one who recognized it. The mouse ran toward that sound. He found the lion tangled in the net, studied it, and without hesitating began to gnaw through the ropes with his small, precise teeth. He worked without stopping, rope by rope, knot by knot. And when he was finished, the lion walked free. Not many versions of the story say what happened next. Some say nothing at all. Perhaps because what matters isn't the words exchanged, but the act itself. The most powerful creature in the jungle had been freed by someone he once found so irrelevant that he hadn't even considered him a threat. someone he had released almost as a joke, almost on a whim. This fable is attributed to Aesop, the famous Greek storyteller whose historical existence comes wrapped in many layers of mystery. He is believed to have lived around the 6th century before Christ, though the stories we know today as his were written down and compiled by others over the course of centuries. The tale of the lion and the mouse appears in ancient collections as well as in Latin versions, and was later picked up by writers like Jean de La Fontaine, the French poet of the 17th century who transformed many of these fables into elegant, widely read poems across Europe. Each era added something to it, adjusted the tone, changed a detail here or there. But the core never changed. The powerful one needs the small one. What makes this story compelling isn't really the mouse's gratitude, though that's part of it too. It's what happens to the lion. He's the one with the more significant arc. His mistake at the beginning isn't cruelty. He isn't a villain. His mistake is more subtle than that. He underestimates. He assumes that help can only come from someone who already has power, that a creature's size announces its worth. And that assumption, so human, so widespread, so seemingly reasonable, is exactly what puts him in danger. There's something in the image of the trapped lion that lands harder than any stated moral. Because this isn't a punishment. The hunters didn't set that net to teach the lion a lesson. The world doesn't work that way. It's simply that no one, no matter how strong or powerful, can predict where they'll need help from next. And when that moment comes, what matters isn't who has the most strength. It's who is there, and who knows how to do what needs to be done. This plays out in very concrete, everyday situations. On a work team, the person without the senior title might be the only one who knows how to solve a specific problem. In a family, the youngest might have information or perspective that no one else has. In a crisis, help can come from someone you barely know, someone who seemed beside the point until that exact moment. Usefulness isn't a fixed quality. It depends on the situation, the context, and what's actually needed. And there's another layer worth naming. The mouse kept his promise, even though no one would have noticed if he hadn't. The lion didn't even remember the encounter. The mouse could have stayed still, convinced that nothing was expected of him. But he went anyway. That says something about how kindness works when it's genuine. It doesn't require an audience. This story has been told and retold for centuries because it touches something that doesn't expire. The tendency to measure people's worth by what's visible at first glance is as old as any civilization and as current as any conversation happening today. It's not easy to unlearn, but one thing helps: remembering that the moment we least expect to need someone might be exactly the moment we need them most.